Look at you, an ACW aficionado.
Come on.
You just corrected me.
I've read one book. So welcome to another Wargame review from ThePlayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at Rebel Fury, Battles of the American Civil War from GMT Games. This is a two-player hex encounter wargame multi-pack that's designed by Mark Herman, and it's a kind of a progression or development of his system that he first implemented in C3I. He did Gettysburg.
We played that in like 2020, I think.
I think it was 2019.
Was it 2019
Because
at
it was
WBC?
before the pandemic.
Yes.
So we played that in 2019. And then he did Waterloo.
A couple of years later.
Also in C3I, which I have right here in their nice swanky cardboard packages they used to do.
Yeah. They don't do them anymore?
I haven't seen one in a while.
Okay. I have those on my
because they had
shelf.
a set of stickers and it was
cool.
Yeah. And then he put together Rebel Fury. So he worked on this for a couple of years.
I think this was announced on the P500, I want to say in 2020.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, because I remember when we were stuck at home, couldn't get together and played, we had Mark on and
yeah, he was
talked
definitely
about this and
yeah.
a couple of other games, but...
And I think that was always part of the plan, right? When he was designing those and they were going really well, he was like, yeah, more and better, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, expand the system, because the system is really solid. It is a very maneuver-based, we even made the comment chess-like, right?
Yes.
In many ways. Maneuver-based chess-like with the combat thrown on top of that.
Yeah, very simple combat system, all things considered.
Yeah. Simple except counting your hexes at your HQ, or that's the only problem we kind of continually have.
Yeah, you're trying to make that, but it's not. This is a game that's supposed to be quick playing, quick to set up, and easy to learn, right?
Yep.
If you actually, so the rule book, it's funny. Do I have the rule book? Do you have the rule book?
It's over here.
So the rule book, if you look at the numbered pages, is 24 pages of rules, which is a very silly amount of rules for a game like this.
Well, and there's actually a lot of big color examples, and
but the reality is it's 1, 2,
text.
3, 4.
Big
5, 6, 7, 8 pages of rules.
Yeah.
It's 8 pages of actual rules. There's like examples and definitions. There's massive, like full double page examples of play.
Yeah. There's at least 2 of those in there, if I remember.
Yeah, and then there's like a couple of like extras at the end, which are like really minor rules. And then there's some specific ones for some of the individual
like
scenarios that you'll get into.
Chancellorsville that has pontoon bridges, or
yes, I believe so. And then there's like heavy artillery concentration, but
yeah,
only the Union has those, and only in some of them. And so it's like there's bits, but the core rules of this 8 pages, very, very doable, very easy to learn.
I think one of the hallmarks of this, and this is actually the Civil War Heritage Series, right? Volume 1. Yes. He has already announced on P500 Volume 2, which is Army of the Potomac,
which I'm very excited.
Yeah, very excited about. But the hallmark of the system is highly playable, low counter density, 8 pages of rules, right? Simple rules. And I think, once again, I'm going to say it, focused on maneuver positioning as its, not its sole focus, but one of the key pillars of the game.
And that was evident right from the beginning of the system, right? Gettysburg was all maneuver.
Yeah.
And then you do some combat, but like...
Well, it was about maneuver and then me rolling doubles on artillery and blowing up myself.
Yeah, right.
We didn't have that here, but that's unique in a war game, right? And a lot of war games are static lines, lots of counters that are up on top of each other, and you don't really... Your maneuver is 1 or 2 spaces.
Yeah, and it's like, or they're at a scale where it's like the things are really sticky, and it's like, I'm like kind of moving guys around a little bit. But this one, it's
very open.
Yeah, you've got 20 counters a piece. So we played the Chickamauga scenario. That's what's out here.
And we played that because it was a battle we haven't played a lot of games on. I don't think any games that I can
not that I know of yet.
That and the map looked pretty cool. Did we already say that at the beginning?
Oh, yeah. We haven't said that, but gorgeous. It looks great. But it also happens to be the one that Mark actually recommends
which
in
is
the
funny.
Rules, which was a total accident. So
and we made that independent of... So grab another map. I just want to see, because we've looked at it, Yeah.
And I wanted to see who did the maps. We were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
we discussed that. Because this looks very Rick Barber-esque.
The art director is Justin Martinez. Map encounters Charlie Keebler.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That clocks.
Well, here, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
This is, sorry,
So this is
Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville. They're they're not double-sided.
No,
a couple
you
of them are double-sided. No,
no,
they
they're not.
play each on
Yeah.
one board.
So the maps are big such that
Right.
you have like a battle over here and a battle over here, or where they cross over like they
Yeah.
do in Chickamauga. So this is Chickamauga and Chattanooga on this one.
Yep. And this one's just not quite as attractive as that one. It's different focus.
But they're still very
gonna-
nice for war
I'm going to have
games.
to put that over there because I don't want to mess it up.
But yeah, it's a really nice looking package. But yeah, a big 22 by 34 map. I've got 20 pieces. You've got 20 pieces. And so
Yeah.
just from like those numbers, that should tell you you've got a lot of space to kind of move around and maneuver. Now, like in those war games, when you start getting into the actual combat and that friction, you're kind of locked in those zones of control unless you then like voluntarily retreat in the next turn.
Yeah.
And then you're going back in. So you've got a lot of maneuver to like try to take geographical places and to outflank your enemies. But when you get into that combat, I actually really like that flow where it's like, hey, we're stuck, and then we get unstuck, and then we go back in, and we come
Right.
back out, which I also is very American Civil War, right? Where you're thrown in waves of guys and coming back again,
Yeah.
and reorganizing and launching another attack. You have that to an extent in a system that, again, is 8 pages of rules.
Well, and I think the other thing that's interesting, particularly about this one, because we have not played the other ones, we are going to play at least one more,
Yes.
if not two. The interesting thing about this is you have your victory conditions. Some are traditional, right? It's like how many of the pieces you kill, and they're each worth 3 points. The detachments, I think, were 1.
Detachment's 1, division's
one.
3, yeah.
And that's like the end of the game if it gets that far and you haven't necessarily done the geographic victory condition. I can't remember how they described that.
Yes, that was actually the only confusing part about the game. So you at the end of the game, you win by most victory points.
Yeah.
And so if you have 8 or more victory points more than your opponent, you just win.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 7 or less victory points than your opponent, there's also a tactical aspect to it.
Yeah.
And if one of you has achieved these geographical goals, which are very difficult,
In this one, it was very difficult.
very challenging.
For both of us.
Yeah, you can like usurp it. It's like it goes from a tactical victory to like a strategic victory. If
Sure.
you can do it, or you can prevent people from doing that as well.
So that was interesting having that kind of different framework for how a victory is made.
Yes.
And I think the first 2 or 3 turns of was it 5 turns?
Yeah, this was a 5-turner.
I was messing around trying to get that, or at least get into position.
Yeah,
to
and
get
I was
that.
too. I was trying to come and take this down
But it
here
just, I think the further we got into it, I began to realize, boy, that's really challenging.
and
Like really challenging.
yeah, they're very challenging. But I also partly kind of loved that.
Oh, absolutely. There
Like
was
if
no
you
doubt.
think about the story of what we did with that, where it was like we tried to do this, and it was like, oh no, things are going really
Yeah.
poorly, and like the fight's getting intense. Recall everyone quickly. That was fun. That
It was.
That was neat to see play out.
This game it definitely feels like a game. You know, that's something we talk
oh yes,
a lot about.
without question.
More often than not, we felt like our die rolls were just, it was a crapshoot.
Yes.
For the most part.
So especially in this particular scenario where almost every single hex on the board is defensible terrain.
Which adds +3 to the defender's strength, and that makes a big difference.
And effectively what that means is that you have to use artillery to get almost even odds.
Yeah.
And so you're doing that, and it was very rare for us to have very divergent combat values.
More often than not, we were within 2 to 4 of each other.
I would say even
2 to 3.
one or 2.
Yeah.
And then it's just a die roll, right?
Right.
And so it's not quite 50-50 a rolling dice, but it's not far away from that. And so, like you said, the combat is like, you've really got to pick your battles, you've really got to set yourself up,
Yeah.
and then you are at the mercy of the dice. It's a game, it's not that serious.
Yeah,
You just do it.
And the other thing I liked about the way the combat system kind of folded into the grander scheme of the entire scenario, during the last, what was it? Was it 2 rounds?
Yes.
every blown result didn't go back to the board, to the map, to come out the next turn or next 2 turns. It was
counts
killed.
as an eliminate. So, what that means is that that's how you score victory points. So those last 2 turns, everyone fights and everyone dies.
Yeah, it can be very bloody.
Which I also love that the mechanics fuel this crescendo in combat.
Yep.
You probably should be reserving your artillery for those,
Well,
and not blowing them all in turn 1 and 2.
Definitely discussed that, and I think we blew a lot in the first turn or 2.
But I think because we matched
We
each
more
other,
often- yes.
that was less. But if someone's got artillery at the end and one
Yeah.
player doesn't,
Oh, man,
you're in trouble.
It would be bad.
So you have to manage that.
Particularly when the better leaders come out, the better combat leaders.
Yes.
When they come out, like Longstreet, who had a +2, and Thomas was your...
Yeah, Thomas. I got him killed.
I think both your leaders died.
No, the other one. The other one passed
Almost.
his check.
Okay, he passed his
yeah,
check.
He died though.
And they die when you roll a 0 or a 9.
Yeah, and then you subsequently fail a leader death check.
Yeah, which is not easy to do, but you did it.
I did it.
I never failed one of those, which was good. But
yeah.
that, I think you used a great word, the crescendo of...
Yeah.
It was kind of like maneuver, maneuver, maneuver. Then it was like, oh, we're combat, combat, combat. And then at the end, it's like all combat.
Yeah,
You're not really moving.
Because how much maneuver did we do in those last 2 turns? Right?
Very little.
It was very tactical.
Yep,
just
it
at
was.
the end, instead of these kind of big, larger maneuvers. But yeah, it all builds to this, and you throw some dice, and sometimes the dice are mean to you, sometimes they're nice to you, and then the game's over.
Tonight, I'm going to be honest.
It was bad.
More
It was a bad
often than
time.
not, I feel like my die rolling is pretty damn good. Like I have a skill. Tonight, holy hell. Every time I rolled, like every time I needed to roll good, it was bad.
I think there
Every
was,
time.
in the combats that we did, there were 2 where I got majorly outrolled. Everything else was either even or I outrolled you.
Yeah, it was
And
interesting.
evens is not good when you're
It's
attacking
not.
in this
It is
game.
not. It typically means a retreat, and the other thing I really liked about this scenario, which I think is very different than the other scenarios, we call this the retreat die because I don't think
the others have it, but this one, because you roll
everything.
yeah,
On this one, every terrain is defensible.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which
Every hex.
means when you retreat, you have to roll
and it's the
blown
50-50
die.
to retreat or
Hey,
be blown.
I just actually rolled a
First
retreat.
time of the whole
First time.
game.
I think I rolled it once. But every other time I rolled a frickin' blown. But it's a 50-50, right?
and again, those blows escalate into
Oh my
eliminations at the
gosh.
end, and so things will just snowball real quick, and then it's done.
I didn't like the combat system as much as I remembered liking it in Gettysburg.
So that's something to kind of bring up here because it is different.
It is.
It's similar, like the way that you kind of calculate some of the modifiers and things. They're a little bit different, but you know, it's here's my value. I'm going to add to that this and this modifier, and then these
Yeah.
stars, and then I roll a d6 and add that to this. And I've done the same thing, and you compare those 2 numbers, and then it's a straight differential
Yeah.
that gives you it's like 0 is a stalemate, +1 or -1 is a retreat,
Yeah.
and then +2 or -2 is like a blown. So
Right.
It's a really
Very,
simple,
very different.
Whereas this one, you add up all those scores, and they're a little bit more intricate in this, which I did like.
I did like it, but I made that comment because I was in the frame of my mind. I was like, oh, Gettysburg combat was like this, and this is very different.
Yeah, Waterloo's the same as Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Where it's like add my numbers and roll the d6, add it, and that's that differential. In this one, you add up those, and I add up those, and then we roll d10s, which is very different from a d6.
Well, the spread is so huge. And I actually like D10s in my, like Empire of the Sun has
Yeah.
a D10. I always love it.
It's very Mark Herman.
Yeah.
But then you roll those d10s, then you get tactical position results,
Yeah.
and then you use those 2 things to cross-reference what the result is that you get. And feeding through those couple things makes it a little bit different.
Well, it just felt, I'm trying to pick my words, choosing them. It felt a little clunky to me.
Interesting.
For lack of a, I didn't hate it. It just felt clunky. And I don't know why that is.
So I don't feel that way.
Okay.
What I liked about this versus Gettysburg and Waterloo is I like the CRT in this. It is a very, very, very punishing CRT.
It is.
but I think I like that it's there because there's more room for nuance. You're still rolling dice, and it's still almost just a straight die roll against a straight die roll.
More often than not,
But
yeah.
there's, if you can get good odds, you will very likely dominate someone in a better way. Whereas the other ones, it's like you just roll some dice. And it's D6. It's a little bit simpler. This is a bit more involved.
So this
and
one
there's more room
feels
for results.
more like a traditional war game in that regard.
A bit more, yeah.
Whereas, once again, and I'm trying to remember back to several years ago, that simplicity of that Gettysburg combat, to me, seemed to pair well with the maneuver-based focus.
And the speed of the game as well.
And the speed of the game.
I agree with that.
This one I felt like, and we got this done in 2 hours. It wasn't like it took 10 hours.
And this was
and it was a
5
turn.
There's ones that are like 3 turns, a 4-turner, and then
This
there's
is like
a
an
6
8-turn.
and an 8. So this is kind of like middle length
There's a 10.
with 20
10 turn.
pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was kind of the middle length. I just wanted to bring those up because it felt different than I think my mind was telling me it was going to be.
Yeah.
And that's my fault.
No, but the combat is one of the major changes, right?
Right.
That's one of the major changes in this game. And there's the other changes that they've made are a bit more nuanced, where like your leaders, if they're in their combat mode, they might stay that way.
And that's the best. That is a really good part.
It's such a tiny little thing, but that first turn where like you left combat mode and I didn't, I'm like, oh no.
Oh no, yeah.
Like
and furthermore,
that's really bad.
You stayed in the same spot.
Yeah, like
you couldn't move your guy.
You can't move. I've got a command range of 5. I'm still good at combat, but like I need to bring my troops in, or I need to try to like run out and get the Chattanooga. Nope.
Yeah.
And then you're like suddenly maneuvering a lot with your 12 command radius, and that was such a neat little bit.
Well, I like how it changed the feeling of the game.
Without adding a ton of rules. Like it's like one little rule.
Not a lot of rules overhead. It wasn't overly clunky or difficult.
And
I enjoyed that.
And I like the way that leaders can die in this one too.
Sure.
Because I like...
That was a nice addition too.
I think that's a very thematic part of the game too.
Mm-hmm.
Where like in reading all the American Civil War stuff how many of the leaders got shot off their horses?
Yeah.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
It feels like... And it's very much like, if you roll really low or really high, that's when they're going to get shot off their horse. It doesn't kill the leader necessarily.
But
means
it can.
that the leader is not a combat leader anymore and never will be, right? Because that guy's gone. The inspiring one. That was such a neat little part of it.
Well, and I think it was kind of cool. The casualty marker. It's pretty cool. I mean, you can look at it, but it basically is a leader being shot off his horse.
He is headless.
Yeah,
I believe.
it's
like
just
his head has been shot off.
It looks cool. I'm just
cool.
going to be honest. But I really liked that part of the design as well, because once again, it changed the conditions and made it such that all of a sudden that tactical, the controlling this thing
those
me,
geographical victory.
Boy, I was like, ooh, I can get ahead a little bit on this.
And when it was like, I was like, oh, I've got to react to this. Like,
and then I left myself open, and you closed that gap, and I'm like, well, hell, I can't get that now. But I did enjoy that leader, pulling the leader off, leaving the leader on. I thought that was pretty nifty, and enjoyed that quite a bit. And actually, I really like the retreat die. That is just brutal.
It's brutal, especially in this
scenario.
And so it'll also probably be brutal in Chattanooga as well.
Because it's
the same map.
Yeah, right.
Unless the fighting's all in and around Chattanooga, in which case that is more empty.
It's more open, yeah.
I'd be curious to see that one too. But yeah, what I'll do is I'll show you how this works. We talked about it a lot. Then we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. Okay, so you'll notice this is actually a different map. I didn't have time to film the board in between us setting up and doing a playthrough of the Fredericksburg scenario. So this is not Chickamauga, which we had played. So you'll have to bear with me on that. But Chickamauga is great, just so you know. So Fredericksburg is a very short scenario. It's great for solitaire play. And you kind of just play in this little corner, and I've got the game turn marker and the activities track down here, kind of under the map sheet. But the way that the game works is that you have these kind of alternating phases between players where you're going to put out your guys, and you can either put them on their move side, where they've got a 15 move value, or the fight side with a cannon with the 2 stars, but a much smaller command range. They can, you know, so he can commit those stars to combats. They also count for winning initiative. So you're going to kind of do that, and you're going to place detachments. They kind of alternate back and forth, but the real crux of the game is when you get into the movement and combats. So in this instance, this particular game, the CSA just defending this ridge. That's really all there is to do in this one. Hence, it's kind of short and good for solo play, but you're going to move guys, and each of them has this 4 or this 1 or a 6 for Cav movement value. And that movement value, you're just going to move from hex to hex. There is a small movement chart, but the movement chart is pretty standard. And basically, what it does is it flips you over if you go into difficult terrains, basically. You don't spend movement points like... It just, you have formation changes. And when you change formation, you're done for that movement activation. So for example, this guy, he's got 4 movement points. 1, 2, 3, 4. He can move, no big deal. As soon as you move into like a woods, you have to have a formation change. Anytime you move into an enemy zone of control or a zone of influence, you have to have a formation change. So I just want to advance. I move here. Each unit has a zone of control in the hexes around them, and a zone of influence in the hexes around those. When you move into the zone of influence, I can't remember where it was, you flip over and you stop moving. Then it's the CSA's turn to activate. Cool, they're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with their little cav. Now it's my turn again. Cool, well I'm going to move again, boop, move down here. Now I'm going to be able to engage in combat. The CSA is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and wow, we're going to flip over. And then these guys are going to go 1, because they're on their 1 side. And then the CSA are going to say, well, we'll just move these guys. And there's this 6 command range, means that the guys who are outside of command range, the only thing they can do is move towards the command range. So he can't go this way because that's not closer. He can't go this way. He can't even really go this way. He has to pretty much beeline it. Once you're in that command range, you can then futz around within the command range, but you can never leave the command range once you're in it. So I might not activate him because he would have to kind of do that, and maybe I want to reinforce up here. So I might just pass. And when I pass, what we do is we're going to roll the die to see how many moves the Union is going to have remaining. And that's kind of in the rule book. I think you have, is it battle stars, I think it is? Let me just double check. I want to make sure that I've got that right. Movement. A D10. Yes, each battle star showing on the commander. So I've got 1 battle star on my commander, and so the CSA is going to pass, and then the Union is going to roll a D10, so they actually rolled it. Oh no, that's a 0. Oh, there's zeros in this game. That's not a 10. This isn't D&D. So I've got 0 plus 1. So you have this little moves attacks remaining, and I've only got 1, which is really bad. So we're going to go here. If you roll like a 9, you got 9 plus 1, you got 10 more moves. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could move a bunch of guys in, right? So there's, in more free-flowing games, when to pass and make that gamble is really, really interesting. In this one, it's like the CSA kind of wants to pass as soon as possible because then they can't move as many guys up, and the assault doesn't look great. Then we're just going to resolve attacks. And you resolve attacks the same way, where they alternate. So, you know, initiative player is going to go first, then you're going to flip to the other side, and you go back and forth again until one person passes. And with attacks, you have a D10 plus a straight 3. So you'll almost always have enough attacks left to do what you need to do. In this particular instance, when you're going up against these ridges, these entrenchments, I think that, what do they call them in this one? I want to make sure I get the name right. The entrenchments, that's what they're called. Those are mandatory attacks, and so you get all your mandatory attacks, and if there's anything left over that was mandatory that you couldn't do within your attacks remaining, you have to finish all the mandatory attacks. So that you can't get out of those. But basically, you're going to roll all of these attacks. And rolling an attack is as simple as adding your different values with all of these modifiers here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to commit your artillery support. So each player has one of these, and you're going to secretly choose commit or not commit, basically. And you do that hidden, and then you reveal them. That spends an artillery point for both sides who commit. We'll say they both commit in this instance. We'll do Griffin on Talfanero here. Talfarino? Taliaferro? Okay, it's going to be ugly. So, this guy, he's attacking up a slope into entrenchments. So it looks real gross. Doesn't extend across. Okay, so technically this guy didn't have to flip because the ZOI doesn't go across that way. Slopes. Okay, so you start with kind of a base value. We're going to calculate these separately because they do have different modifiers. So for the attacker, you start with a base of 1. For our artillery support, we get 3. In this particular game, and in some of the scenarios, you have this heavy artillery, and you can commit your heavy artillery marker to a certain area, and that's going to give you a radius, which gets you a bonus, but we don't have that in this one. Well, I don't. We didn't do it there. I think I put the marker somewhere else. So that's that one. So we're going to get 1 plus 3 is 4. We're going to get leadership battle stars. So we're going to look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm 5 away from my leader. My leader's got 1 battle star, so he contributes 1 to that. So I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Troop quality. If you have stars on your troop, those contribute as well. We don't have any of that. Attack support. If the attacker adds 2 if there's a friendly division in both the attacker and the defender's zone of control. So where this guy, my zone of control is here. So this guy is in the Union zone of control, but not in the CSA zone of control. So if I had a guy here, we would get the support for him, but we don't, so there's no bonus there. And then attacker adds 1 for core division integrity. So you see I'm VC here, I'm 5th core, so I think, well, so this guy's a different core, but if I had these guys together, you would get an additional +1 on that, but we don't. So that's the end of that. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm a 5. That's not very good. So we'll just mark that as a 5. So the defender is a 1 naturally, and you take the best defensive modifier, and the best defensive modifier is the entrenchments. So the entrenchments give us +5. So I'm 5, 6. I committed defensive artillery support, which adds 4 instead of the attacker's 3. So I'm already at 10. I would also gain bonuses from my stars. I would also gain bonuses from Robert E. Lee if I wanted to commit him. In this instance, I will not commit him because I don't need to. And the important part of that is if you commit your leader and on your tactical position determination roll, you roll a 0 or a 9, there's a chance that they could die. So if you don't need to risk them, don't bother. So we got ourselves to a 10, so we're going to go 5 to a 10. So we're both going to roll a d10 on this table. So we're going to roll for the Union first. We roll a 5, and I rolled a 1. So I didn't roll a 0, so that's at least something, but that is terrible and indicative of how I roll. So we got a D result. And then the CSA is going to roll, and they rolled a 7 on the 10 table. So 7 on the 10 table is an SA. So we have attacker D versus SA, attacker blown. So, as you might expect, I charged up the hill and I'm blown. I go onto the turn track 2 turns later. In this instance, there's not 2 turns later because we're too far into the game, and that's a victory points for the opponent. And you're going to do that back and forth, up and down here. So it's a game of positioning. You're trying to run all your guys up, get them in line, get your core in divisional integrity together, get them support with stars, manage your artillery support, because in this game, in this scenario, you can use them for every single attack and you're pretty much never going to run out. But some of them you will run out, or you might want to save them for later in the game, but you might want to match what your opponent's doing, and if you overcommit, there will be a couple of battles probably towards the end where you've run out of ammo and that will show. So you've got to be really careful with that. But that's really what the game is, and you're going to go to a new round, you're going to kind of reset. The guys who are in this attack position, they're going to roll to see if they stay that way. So you roll your d10, and if you roll low, they will sit here. And it's a really fun roll, because you might be like, I still can't move this guy, because I'm trying to get him this way, but because of the command radius and the rules regulate movement, he has to move this way. And so you end up with the guys who are stuck in this combat mode. It kind of hurts your ability to maneuver. If you're in the maneuver mode, you will always come off and you can go back on. Sometimes you might want to stay in combat mode, and that's not much of a penalty, but in some of the scenarios, you're like, oh, I need the freedom to move, and you might not get it from your leaders, which is really, really interesting and fun to play around with. But yeah, it's not a complex game. You go back and forth, you resolve probably 4 or 5 combats, depending on what you're doing, sometimes more, but they go quicker, they have a much better, I think, range of results based on values instead of just kind of the die rolls and the differentials that you had in the old games. But that's what Rebel Fury looks like, and what we'll do is we'll wrap up here with a few final thoughts. So that was a look at the map and how it functions. I think we plan on doing a playthrough of this as well.
Yes.
Like, we're going to record us playing this. Maybe we'll do the shorter scenario just so it doesn't take an hour and a half.
Probably Fredericksburg or Wilderness, maybe.
But that way, you can kind of see what the flow of a game looks like. And we don't do a ton of playthroughs here, and I think it's just fun to do them every so often.
I think we don't do them because we're so slow.
Yes.
And part of the reason we're so slow is we do have a lot of chats in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
Tactically, strategically, what's going on, what we like, what we don't like, what doesn't feel like it's working. I mean, any number of things.
I don't know if you know this watching our channel. We like to talk. But yeah, that's the joy of what we do here, especially at the Players Aid, is we play in this game, and every decision, we're almost like brainstorming what the best move is.
Yeah.
How to manipulate the system, what the designer's trying to do with this thing, and okay, why can't I do this? Okay, is it because of this, that, and this? Or that's the joy of what we do here, and I really like that. But yes, it makes us have slow playtime. So having learned and played this, hopefully we'll do a playthrough, and it's like pretty reasonable, and we can talk our way through it, and it won't be.
Well, I definitely think now that we've had the refresher on the system, and now learned the nuances of the new system and the new additions, doing that 3-turn scenario, I'm expecting an hour.
I would expect an hour
guess.
as well. And I don't know how many pieces that it has, because that would make a difference as well. But
it might have more.
But it's Fredericksburg?
Yes.
Yes, about the same. So
Okay.
about 20 odd.
So I would think we could do that in an hour.
Yeah.
So.
But I had a really good time playing this.
No doubt.
It's enjoyable. So there's definitely more of this coming on the channel, so watch out for that.
Yep.
I would recommend this because it is...
Oh, no doubt.
It's a 6-pack. It's the only... Yeah, right.
Well, this reminds me of the Men of Iron.
Grant, I've got a 6-pack.
Well, okay. First time ever.
That's the only time ever.
But it reminds me of the Men of Iron tri-pack.
Yes.
This has 6 battles now. Men of Iron had like 400.
Yes.
It didn't have that many. But
it wasn't far off, though.
I mean, if you like the system after you play it, you've got 6 different battles to play.
And then you're going to go by Waterloo, because you will.
Yes.
And then you'll go by Gettysburg, because you will.
Because it's a good little system. The other thing about this is this easily could be played solo.
Yes, there's no reason you could.
There's no hidden information. You just do both sides. I think it actually would be very good solo.
It's like I go, you go. So you just like, I do one, you do one, you just alternate.
What you're going to lose, though, a little bit, is that chess-like feeling.
Yes.
That was the best part.
So,
right?
If you don't know, Mark Herman loves chess.
Yes.
I presume he's pretty good at it.
I would guess so, too.
He might say that he's not, but I would not wish to play him. But in every single one of his games, I think I would say that, you can see...
That influence.
That influence from chess.
Yeah.
There's something, and I guarantee it. And this one, it was very much... There's even a chess rule in it, which is funny, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's because it's alternating activations, you might do something that's like a bit piddly over here to try to get your opponent to show their hand of what they might be trying to do, or oh, you moved this one, cool. I can move in. Now we're locked in zones of control, so this person can't like complete some swing by maneuver.
Yep.
And it's this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and like you said, it's a great game mechanic.
Yes. Well, I think it came up 2 or 3 times where I was moving like across a creek, across Chickamauga Creek, right? I mean, the battle's named Chickamauga. But I moved across, and in this scenario, that, I'm trying to remember what that is, something mill.
Jay's Mill?
Jay's Mill. You know, I moved in there, and you were outside of my zone of influence, right?
I was in your zone of influence, but I had moved previously.
Right, but now you're like, oh, I'm just going to move right in there, and oh, you don't get any terrain bonus.
Yeah, you're out in the open like, oh no.
And I remember after I did that, and I took my finger off the counter, I saw that, and I'm like, oh crap, I just screwed up. So I imagine when I play chess, I take my finger off a piece, and I'm like, oh boy, I just screwed up.
Yeah.
Right? But sometimes you're trying to goad someone into doing something so you can then, and I did like that. It's like you said, you're trying to force that move that then allows you to do your real move and get into position to take advantage of the...
To like counter outflank them kind of stuff and do bits like that.
Well, the one thing I really liked was the divisional integrity gave you +1, right? So trying to keep those divisions together, I did horribly at that.
Yeah, or trying to put a wedge in so
separate
they
them.
can't do it.
But that chess-like movement of moving in, and even when you do the order of your attacks,
That's very
is
important.
also very important.
Well, and initiative is also important for that.
It is.
But I think with movement, the other thing, again, I really liked, and it was more important earlier on, was that capacity to pass.
Yes.
So if you can, like, rush and get to where you
wanna
kind of
be.
need to be and pass,
Yep.
the opponent's going to roll a die, and they're going to get 3 + 1, they're going to get 4 additional moves. And if they're really out of place, if you can do it, you can really get someone off balance.
And I think you did it. I think you did it well the first couple of turns, but unfortunately, I rolled highly enough that I was able to still get in position. But I remember when you did that, I was like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah,
like I'm screwed, right? But that's what I mean by the chess. That's what I mean by the competing maneuvers to get into position or get out of position.
Yeah, it's very like
it's very good.
Ooh. And when you're doing that, a lot of the times you're in zones of influence or have been, so you've got one movement. So it's very much like I move 1 hex, you move 1 hex,
Yeah,
I move 1 hex,
and it's kind of funny.
And it's really 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 fun. And it just like, but it remains a game,
yes,
right? And the feel of what you're doing is that as well. And then again, this one's a 5-turner. Some of them are a bit longer, but like you play, maneuver, fight, and then you're kind of done.
Yep.
It
really doesn't overstay its welcome.
No,
I don't think it. Other than adding the different combat value bonuses and things up. That was about the only kind of crunchy element. The rest of it was like, to me, fairly intuitive. Once you play it, I think you're going to get it. I think there's a lot of cool things here.
You just have to keep recounting your command radius.
And that gets hard. Gets a hard.
So if you haven't played Waterloo, it's on Rally the Troops, and all of that's automated. So you click on your leader, or you just mouse over it, and this is everything that you can do.
Boy, if you could do that somehow.
Or have like a template where you're just like, okay, boop, that's my
12,
command radius.
I put it here. That would be amazing. Somebody surely can come up with something like that.
Yeah,
That's a see-through plastic thing.
Or like a little, or just a 12 or 24 hex diameter wire that you just like lay down. Like those, I think about those spell effects that Brum had.
Exactly.
Because then you can lay it down and leave it, really.
Those are squares, though. These would have to be hexes.
Yeah, but it's all geometric. It'd be nice.
Sure.
That would be a...
It would be very cool.
Somebody's
got to come up with that.
Someone's going to do it.
But I think that was the only... That, and then... And actually, the combat modifiers, there's not that many of them.
Once you do it, because you'll do a lot of combat.
Yeah. I mean, there's the play aid. Excellent play aid, by
We
the
had
way.
those memorized.
Yeah, we did
quickly.
by probably the 4th or 5th battle. But still, from time to time, I was confusing like the divisional integrity is only the one. A couple times I think I counted it as two.
Yeah, whereas
and then I
attack
was like,
support is 2.
Yes.
But then only the attacker gets.
Yeah, yes. So there were things that I think, now that I've got it down, though it's not that big of a deal, but I was a bit, I don't know what the word is, but I struggled a bit with that. And then the only other thing here on the attack results table, these symbols, sometimes we were like, what?
Yeah,
Is that a double one? I don't know.
All the symbols have like extra things to go and look at to make sure that you do.
Yeah.
And it's basically all depends on the terrain that you're in.
Well,
as well.
and the scenario that you're
Just
playing.
everything's defensible. Okay, great.
Yeah, there's a lot to like in this system. There's a lot to like in this game and this package.
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad we played this one because I think the other scenarios are going to be vastly... Chattanooga won't be, but the other 4 will be very, very different because of that terrain.
We'll definitely do a different one. 'Cause, yeah, I'm excited to see the very different feel in it as well.
And frankly, I would love to try a couple of these scenarios solo, just to see how that works. But it's a very cool game. Very much enjoyed this, and I very much look forward to playing it again, and also Army of the Potomac in a year or two, whenever that gets wrapped up.
Which we don't exactly know what's in there, I don't think.
Well, I think we probably
Maybe we do.
I just...
If it's on P500, surely we do.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I just didn't memorize it. So, I don't memorize everything.
But surely that'll have a lot of those famous ones up there, right?
Sure.
So that's something to look forward to for sure. But Rebel Fury from GMT and Mark Herman, check this out if you're interested. You probably should be interested because it's a multi-pack short.
One other comment. Alexander's becoming somewhat of an American Civil War aficionado. He has read Volume 1 of Shelby Foote's 3-volume series.
I'm halfway through 2.
Oh, you're halfway through? Yeah. My goodness. But he corrected me this evening. I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember either, but I remember that it happened.
And it was kind of funny, because in my mind I heard your voice a little more villainous and like, silly fool. It was this. I'm like, oh yeah, you're actually probably right.
I read one book and now I'm sneering at everyone.
And I've read several American Civil War books, but it's been many, many years.
Also, someone was like, how does this compare to GCACW?
Not at all.
Get out.
Other than...
That's not even a question.
Other than the setting and the war, nothing.
It has hexes and it has pieces. Sure.
I thought that was funny. And
they were probably joking.
They probably were.
Because they know I like that system.
I think you're right. But I was like, oh boy. But this is really very tactical, which I liked.
Yeah, because you're playing at a level where like it's not operational, but like you're playing with your pieces of division and you got a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. But the reality is you don't have any supply concerns, you don't have any command and control concerns, really. It's just like, what you're doing is tactical, even though you're not, it's not those guys.
And it's fun. I mean...
It's just fun.
We had wrapped the video up. I sucked us back in with some flippant comment, and now we're talking about the scale. So
didn't we say we like to talk earlier?
But I did enjoy this, and I want to play... Like I said, one of those shorter ones, and I think we need to do a playthrough.
And I know that a lot of people are playing this right now, and have been, and are liking it. So if you don't have this, check it out, definitely. At worst, it's good value for how much you get in it.
So very good, though. I enjoyed this a lot.
But thanks very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander for thePlayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.